today's society may be thwarted. It gives me great pleasure, therefore, to present to you today the founder of the League, Miss Sylvia Stankhurst, singing for us a song which offers sage advice to the worried citizen. Sylvia's mother, the celebrated Emma Stankhurst, will accompany on the pianoforte.
All right, folks, it's time for Shiny Side Out with David Dunger and Mecky. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. Take it away, guys.
This is... Welcome to Shiny Side Out with Dave.
And Mecky.
Live from the Sydney studios. Jump into the chat room at freedomslips.com while we're on air and follow us on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. Check out shinysideout.net for our show archives, our show notes, which include all of the links we paste into the chat during the show. Listen to us on FM, WZZR 101.3 in Kentucky. You know, there are so many ways to listen to Revolution Radio. freedomslips.com is one way. Go there. You can get the Revolution Radio app, TalkStream Live. It's a great way of doing it. TuneIn.com. Go there. You find that in your Play Store or the iTunes Store, or just go to the website. Radio Tuna, as in the fish. Spreaker.com. iHeart. Live 365. These are all revolutions in radio. And there's something else, Mecky, if you don't know, if the people don't know, you can listen on a Grace Tabletop digital radio, or you can be driving around in your General Motors vehicle with a receiver-enabled radio. The number to call in if you're in the USA is 347-688-2902, or you can simply add Freedom Screen to Skype. It's that simple. Do you know what? We want you to do it. We want you to be part of the show. Don't sit around. If you're watching this on YouTube, go to the website. Enjoy it. A lot of fun.
Come to the website so we can assimilate you. Nice read, buddy. Nice read.
Do you know
Very
what?
Good. I like it.
Do you know what? This is show number... What is it, Mecky?
2 and 100. What? For you people out there that don't follow my counting system, it's 102.
Yeah, that it makes my head pop. He's
Yeah,
gonna
I know.
pop. He's gonna pop. He's gonna pop.
It's not pretty on video. Pa-boom! There it goes. All ketchup. Don't worry about it. On blueberry
Boom.
sauce.
There it is.
Oh, you guys. Thank you very much for allowing us to stay on the air this long. Thank you very much for listening to whatever tinfoil hetty insanity we bring you. I hope there is some information that you find useful, but yeah, it's awesome. And again, thank you very much for letting us be part of your life.
Honestly, it's so appreciated. You don't know. Did you?
They don't.
No, they don't. And I'm just going to tell them. This is what I'm going to tell them, yeah? And tell all the people out there listening, because I know there's... And you know what, Mecky? Has it not grown from the day we started to now?
So.
The numbers of people that are listening to us are incredible. And, you know, I've got to thank everyone. Plug. I got to thank everyone that's out there that's listening to us. And you know what? It is pretty tough. I'd love for you guys to contact us outside of the show. Yeah, that's a true true mark, I reckon, if you can, maybe suggest a show topic in the distant future. We can research it for you and bring it out. We can bring it live. Maybe you already know about it.
Yeah.
Jump in the chat room.
I mean, you know what we look like now, right? So if you see us in the street,
don't hate us.
Don't throw rocks. That'd be good. But if you want to come up and just have a chat, that's cool. I'm very approachable. Dave is very approachable. So yeah, that's all. I mean, I have a few stories to tell you this particular week. Fascinating stuff. But I'm actually working with a couple of guys who are listening to the show. One guy, Dave, who's got his own channel. Hi, Dave. This is a different Dave Smith. and
I know
someone.
Dave.
Yeah, you do. I know.
Yeah.
And someone's son. One of the guys I work with, his son, who's in his teenage years, I believe, is listening to the show as well. So, Mr. Caulfield, I'll shout out to you. Thank you very much for listening. But yes, it's amazing. I mean, you don't know who listens. To be honest, in Australia, I've got zero idea. I know our listenership in the States is quite large, comparatively speaking. But in Australia, I'm really not sure how many guys are there. I really don't know.
Although it's a surprise to us, but I tell you, it comes up in conversation quite a bit when people are talking to me, either for the first time or the people I haven't seen for a long time. And I tell them what we're doing. These are success stories. I know that all the people I went to school with at the last reunion found out. I told them. I'm
what
so
did they
excited. Well,
tell me what they thought.
Half of them were less than half.
Half of them were less than half?
A few of them were the anti. So they said, well, why? What would you want to do that for? And
oh, really? Not so
only,
much questioning the content, but rather why you would do that? That's interesting.
Yeah, it is. But one of the things I thought was really interesting was and I told everyone at the time when this came out, and that was that there was one guy, a military man, that I went to school with, and he initially told me how ridiculous it would be that someone could keep information from someone else.
Right.
And I said, well, if I was your boss and I asked you not to tell your coworker and I asked you to do something in particular, and you had clearance or I gave you clearance for it, makes sense, right? You wouldn't tell anyone. He goes, yeah, sure, I wouldn't tell anyone. So there you go, bingo.
You wouldn't tell anyone because, well, number one, I guess you'd be a certain kind of person once you get the clearance. Number two, they shoot you. Okay, they will shoot you for treason.
Yeah.
That's what's happening to all those whistleblowers. They're being tried for treason, and the penalty, the punishment for treason is capital punishment, death. They will shoot you. They might hang you in different countries. But if you divulge secrets of a national security kind of a secret, then you are up for treason, and that's never a good thing, guys. So can you keep a secret? Yes, you can. And if you can't keep a secret, you've got two other options. You pay them off or you kill them. Right? You can't pay them off, you will kill them. If you can pay them off, then you probably have to kill them later, just in case. They get... Well, like we had a few confessions on the deathbed. Do you remember a few astronauts?
That's
Maybe
right.
not a few, but there was also the director, I think it was the director of the CIA. Look, I'm going to research it, but Deathbed... that's a show. Deathbed Confessions. Bingo. Boom. Right there.
Yeah.
You've seen our creative process now, guys. This is how we do it.
There you go.
But yeah, so people do, I guess, when death approaches, they feel, I want to unburden myself, and the only way you can stop that is you kill them at a time of your choosing with nobody else around. Right? So that's what you need to do. So yes, you can keep a secret, Dave. You're right. You're 100% correct, and I'm glad that he admitted that.
I only had to ask him that, give him an example of it, because he literally said, how could it at all be possible? How could you keep a secret with 40,000 employees working on something?
Yep.
And well, they've done it over and over again. Can
I give you an example? I give you two examples, but I want to give you one example that's that's very pertinent. It's very real life and touched a lot of people. Bernie Madoff. Okay. The secret was that there was no investment fund. there was no magic investment. People just kept paying in. And, you can argue that Bernie was the only guy that knew it. I don't think so. I think other people were in on it, but they were making good profit. So essentially, he got money from people, and then he got more money from other people, and he used that money to pay the money back that he had gotten from the first lot of people.
That's right.
So it was a self-perpetuating Ponzi scheme, it's called, in fact, after an Italian gentleman that perpetuated that on America in the early 20th century. Mr. Ponzi, who died very poorly in Italy, where he was deported to. Anyway, that's beside the point. So that's one. So that secret was kept for a long, long time. And even though people might have known, they kept that secret because they wanted to keep getting money. Like especially the first lot of people that invested in Madoff's scheme. And secondly, and this is probably cutting very close to the bone for some people, but people always thought that every German knew about the Holocaust, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think so. I really don't think so. A lot of people might have suspected, yes, but you have to realize that the actual concentration camps were in the east. So not actually, there were only a few in Germany themselves. They were usually in very remote areas. Most of them were in the eastern states of Germany, as well as Poland, Hungary, and so forth. And so, how do you keep that a secret? Well, how do you keep it a secret? Nobody ever talked about it, right? Nobody ever mentioned it specifically, and I guess people that were going to talk about it, they would end up in the concentration camp, right? So that secret was kept, like it was never openly discussed. It was maybe it was an open secret that people just wanted to deny, and maybe to some extent we are living in the same kind of world now, where we want to deny certain things, and that's okay. I know it's uncomfortable to talk about or think about the things we talk about. It's uncomfortable for me too, because I mean, Dave has got a family, I've got a family. What if we're right? That would be horrible. It'd be horrifying. But there's a good chance that we're right, and but in a whole bunch of things, I'm sure we're wrong about a whole bunch of things too. But it's important that we are equipped. It's important that we think about how we can not fight the system, but survive it, come out ahead. Fighting will get you killed. I mean, everybody who's fought it in the past, they all got steamrolled. There's not much you can do, guys. They've got the upper hand. So it's important, Dave. I believe that we are open our eyes, and walk into it into the unknown, as it were. Right? For most of us, this is the unknown. And yes, secrets are being kept, and partially because we don't want to know the truth. If Dave and I have been talking for a long time, other people have been talking, astronauts have been talking what they've seen, military men have been talking, intelligence officers have been talking, retired politicians have been talking, right? Or a whole bunch of people. Jesse Ventura has been talking, right? He was governor of was it Tennessee, I think? Could be wrong. But the point is, people are talking about it. The whole point is that it's not a secret. It's out there.
It certainly isn't a secret.
Right? So what do they do? So this is what we're going to talk about a little bit later as well. Misinformation. Misinformation is sowed in. Red herrings are put. They shift the debate to something that doesn't matter at all, but it has distracted rather from the actual issue. People are no longer talking about what the prime core central theme was of any given conspiracy, because they're really busy on the fringes discussing whether or not it was the Cubans or the mafia that killed John F. Kennedy, and and what kind of rifle they used, what caliber was the bullet, and then 9/11. Well, did we use thermate or thermite or a new laser weapon from space? Who cares? I mean, of course, it's important in its own right to some extent, but the actual issues are not that. The issues are who actually authorized the killing of John F. Kennedy, who actually let 9/11 happen.
Exactly.
Maybe, So these are the key.
But people get lost.
Yeah.
People get lost in the conversation rather than the effort. The agenda is to bring it out. Yep. And not start arguing over ourselves about it. And look, we've seen the same thing with climate change. They called it global warming first. Well, that isn't quite the right way of putting it. Mm-hmm. And then because it says, well, if it's warming, why is it warming? Well, we answered the question. Yeah. Well, actually, I don't think we did. Maybe the question wasn't right. So they said, let's call it climate change. Well, yes, we know the climate's changing, and there's no argument there.
It's always changing.
Yeah, I know, but it's certainly, you shouldn't see hotter or colder temperatures or more extreme winds or anything if it wasn't changing. It would have already hit maxes, and that'd be it.
Yes.
So Mackie, one of the things that I did some research this week. These are some interesting facts, I think. There was an advanced tactical fighter developed by Northrop back in 1990. That's when it did its first test flight. Now, that fighter, the ATF, was the most advanced plane ever built to the day that it was built, out of the most radical materials, like the SR-71, just like it. It was test flown at Edwards Air Force Base, but the thing is, there was 40,000 people that worked on it, who worked between 40 and 80 hours a week, couldn't tell their families what they were doing. 40,000. No one told anyone about it because it was top secret.
Yep.
It was going to be shown. It wasn't. It's not anti-gravity, yeah, but it was certainly top secret, and they've only just been given permission to do a documentary, which I've just seen on the ATF, the Northrop's version, which is the YF-23. Amazing plane, absolutely amazing. It can do things that no other plane can do, and it's about being a force multiplier. Is, you know, one plane can take down 10 because they all talk to each other. It was the first thing of its kind, right? Military technology always it excites me for one reason, and that's because it's always the cutting edge. It's the cutting edge of whatever it is, because you can't go out there and go, oh, guess what? We made a really big bow and arrow, and people go, what? yeah, no, it's like you've never seen before. It's not going to impress me even if you show it to me. Even if you killed someone with it, it's not going to impress me because there's nothing that you can do to make it better. Right,
but my board has got a really big deal. No, it's big, really big.
Yeah, it cost $2 trillion and 40,000 people worked on it. They were burning during. This is some interesting facts about this plane. That Northrop was burning $1 million per day on staff. The paper that they were producing in this project over the 5 years, I think it was, to develop the plane, when they joked that when the weight of the paper equaled or exceeded the weight of the plane, they should have finished the plane. That's how much paper they were generating from this. Not that it was made out of paper. Something really, really interesting from this is they mentioned the computer specifications inside the cockpit.
Okay.
This is something, it just hit home to me, Mackie. How's this? 3 billion, not 300 MIPS, but it's 3,000 MIPS. 3 billion instructions per second was the computational power of the computer on board the plane. At the time, can you just have a guess what we were working with at the time in domestic products?
A lot less? 250K,
the
250 meg?
486DX2.
Right.
Which is 54 megahertz.
Mm-hmm.
It roughly equated to about only 100 MIPS. Oh, sorry, 50 MIPS or so. It was pitiful. In those days, we thought it was awesome, yeah? But it seriously isn't. The differential between 3,000 and 54 and the number 54 is big. That's a big differential between what the military had access to and what the consumer, the public, has access to. So I'll tell you at what year we hit that in the public market. That was in the year 2000. So in the year 2000, we hit 1 billion instructions per second for the first time. But the military did it 10 years earlier. Now, Moore's Law, it's ever decreasing size, ever increasing CPU cycles.
Yep.
Was pretty amazing to know that they had that back then. I presume that right now, since the i7, for instance, has 127 billion, all those i7 owners. Mackie, I'm looking at you.
That's me, baby.
Yeah. So the i7 owners, everyone who has an i7 right now, can get away with about 127 billion instructions per second. I think that's amazing. My phone, I've got a Samsung S4. There's 2 flavors of them for 2 different country setups. It's 2.8 billion. My phone has almost, I mean, it's marginal, but almost, the differential is marginal, the same processing power as what was in the ATF in the 1990s. People.
Yeah.
This is 2013.
Now that begs another thing here, Dave. If you don't mind me jumping in.
Jump in.
We are reaching the end of what silicon can do, right? For the very simple reason that it can't make it any smaller and it gets too hot. It's just that's the limitations of silicon. So people are looking at nanotubes. They're looking at even organic computing power, and even light computing, right? So we're using light switches and light processors. Now, if in fact the military had in 1990 rather access to this kind of computing power, they would be pushing the limit of silicon at that point, no doubt. So right now, my contention is that they've moved well beyond silicon. Why is this important? Well, it's important because it opens the door to a whole bunch of new smart materials, potentially even a different kind of physics. Okay, so we can now do things, quite likely the military can, that you and I can only dream about, have read about in science fiction books, seen in the movies, la la la. For the military, this might all be well and good. I want to let slip something here. Someone told me that
this is Freedom Slips.
Freedom slips, my friend. It does. It's slipping all the time, my friend. So we gotta guard it. No. So essentially, he had a conversation with a military man that worked in Pine Gap. Pine Gap is a military installation in Australia that no Australian is allowed to actually enter. It's an American installation. People call it the Australia's Area 51, whatever, or Groom Lake facility. Well, you call it whatever you like. However, the interesting tidbit of information that I will share with you is that there's a now this is only hearsay. This is secondhand information, guys, but I'm going to share it with you anyway. There is a portal connecting Groom Lake with, in fact, Pine Gap. A portal, a gateway,
like a jump
dimensional, room? like a jump room, sir. Yeah. Right now, this is the first time I've heard of two jump rooms connecting on the Earth. But nonetheless, there it is. Is that far-fetched? No, it's not. It is not, because we are in school. We are 60, 70 years behind in our learning. Physics, the cutting-edge sciences. Again, a story that was shared with us by another frequent listener. I won't mention his name. I will, with his permission, next time. He told us about something that was developed at the CSIRO, ground-penetrating radar. And this was years ago. And the next day, after he'd spoken to the guy, the senior, the senior researcher, and then, this is what we're doing. And he goes, oh, this is very interesting. Oh, yeah. And then, but it might be the next way or the next week. Lo and behold, the entire lab had been cleaned out, and there was not a sound to be heard as to where those people had gone. Soon after, we had 9/11, and guess what? That ground-penetrating radar may very well have been used to find whatever in Afghanistan, Iraq, under the ground. So whenever something extraordinary is being researched, and again, I'll just point you at the Tesla papers here, chances are someone is going to put their big fat thumb on it so we can't see it, right? And that's why we are 60 to 70 years behind, guys, from where we, or maybe more. Who the hell knows? Maybe more. Pardon my French.
That was French?
That was not French.
I think in terms of secrecy and how it should be, number one, approached. How should you approach secrecy if you really want it? Yeah. We know the motives behind it. Now, I'm not going to say, and I believe there should be secrets that the military has that they're not telling anyone, because developing stuff in plain sight that your enemies can now see by satellite is probably a bad idea. And maintaining a certain level of secrecy in a cold... It generates... The secrecy itself generates a Cold War situation where you start not trusting the other party.
Yes, sir. Tension building, absolutely.
It is, and it doesn't help the situation at all, yeah? We just this week, I think we saw the launch of the Chinese aircraft carrier.
Yes, that's a huge step. And again, I liken it to World War I. Just prior to World War I, Germany and Great Britain And because up to this point, it's the US that held supreme power on the seas with its aircraft carrier. In fact, you can't touch the US because they can get you anywhere in the world with the aircraft carriers or the fleets around them.
Yep.
That was the big differentiator. Now with the Chinese launching into their own development of fleets of this nature, well, it's a whole different ballgame.
That's right. So recently, as recent as this week, we've seen that. We know that they, in advance of doing that, they expanded their no-fly zone.
Mm-hmm.
They did that right before Christmas. That's not a step that you would take. You wouldn't expand your no-fly zone around your country unless you had something to hide.
It also makes sense that they're so eager to keep those otherwise useless islands.
That's
You know,
right.
the dispute between Japan and China around these, I can't remember the name of the islands now, but essentially useless rocks in the water, but obviously something is going on there, right?
They're so incredibly steep, you can't even build on it. You can barely
that's
walk
right.
on it. Yep.
Yep.
So, yeah, look, there's intent all over the place. And one, obviously, was that was the East China Sea, and they wanted to extend the no-fly zone into the South China Sea.
Mm-hmm.
China has now announced that they could strike countries in the US with their nuclear-armed submarines, which is never a good call. Like you don't yell over your backyard to your neighbour, over the fence, do you, Mickey? Do you yell over the backyard to the neighbour saying,
Constantly, I can burn your house down now.
I can kill you and a lot of you.
Mind you, the distance between the houses I live in my neighbor's house is 80 centimeters. So I barely fit through with my bin. Okay, my property border is my neighbor's wall. Okay, that's not his fence, his house wall.
Yeah, his
Okay,
house wall. That's great.
But yes, you look, absolutely, it's stupid. And again, is it just to poke the bear? I mean, no, or maybe put your hand down the snake hole, see if there really is a snake in there. That's good. Now
If you pull your hand out, you're a man, aren't you, Mickey? Is that the way it works? Is that the
well, if
wood
you live,
beast?
you are. Yeah, no. If you live, you might yet spread your seed, as it were.
Well, you certainly would be able to, because all the other suckers would get killed. So,
Boom.
but this is it, right? So they've released through the media this week as well the threat that for the last 20 years, unknown to everybody, they had a submarine fleet that was going around all of the, into all the harbours and secretly spying on people, and I think that's extraordinary. That their guys, in an interview with their submariners, they said, after working for more than 72 hours straight in their submarine, they can get a little disorientated.
Really?
Yeah. And these are nuclear submarines they're running. They're nuclear. They sand them for months.
Yeah. Yes. That's the thing.
And they don't have. It seems like they don't have the same shift changes as the US submarines, where they've allotted even personal time on each shift. But do you know what? The map of the US that I saw them claim to be able to make strikes on, including California, right up through the redwoods to Washington, right across the top end. They said they'd leave this is what China said, they would leave the food-producing areas intact.
Two things I want to say. One, that seems a little redundant, considering Fukushima is doing a bang-up job of poisoning the west coast of the American
It sure is.
North and South American continent. So that's one. So two, there's actually a few scenarios which have been run both in literature as well as in military war games, where in fact the Japanese, or in fact the Chinese, in this scenario the Chinese would take over the grain belt as well as the west coast would be obliterated. Not anything west of the Rockies would be gone. Anything east of the Rockies would be taken on by the Chinese as both a grain chamber and a huge settling ground for its bursting population. So as far as, because you see, America is quite fertile, right? If you land mass is the same as Australia. Because people wonder, why hasn't anybody really invaded Australia? Not like it's hard. there's no way you can defend Australia.
No.
It's not going to happen. The problem is that it's all desert, right? It's full of poisonous animals. It's got crocodiles in the north. It's got sharks.
The plants
it's got all
will
the things
kill you. The animals will kill you, and anything. The plants themselves can kill you.
Yeah.
But if you
We don't
eat
have
them,
any
they
large-
can kill you, and the animals
Yeah.
kill you.
That's right. We don't have any large predators. There's no lions or tigers. It's the little ones. I mean, that'll kill you. The scorpions, spiders, snakes, and so forth. Whereas, America is a very hospitable place, very fertile. I mean, it's a huge, it's a grain belt. For most of the world, in fact, to some extent. So it's a much better target. So you lay waste. In fact, you can lay waste to the East Coast. There's nothing there. You're interested in the middle states. The dairy and grain producers.
So-
Sorry, that was my 2 points.
Yeah. So on the map that was present, that they showed bombing all the way down to Boston, on the eastern coastline, all the cities, wherever anyone was, and I thought, well, that's an invasion tactic if I've seen it. It wasn't for mad, mutually assured
Yeah.
destruction.
Yep.
It was just so they can get the food. And one of my friends in Australia here has postulated. How's that for a nice word today?
I like it.
He has a propensity for postulating.
Oh,
large
propensity
words.
is. Oh my God! Here we go now, huh?
All right.
You're flabbergasting us.
He speculated. There you go. I've got my thesaurus out. that China would make a push for India.
Oh, really?
Because once again, it's an extremely fertile landmass,
It
but it's
is.
closer to them.
No, you're right. But
And
It
they
would
would
be-
put up less resistance.
well, that I'm not sure about. I mean, but the thing is this with India.
Yeah.
It would be. I guess if it's all airstrikes, fine. But if you have to cross the Himalaya mountain range, forget about it. That's never going to happen. That's going to kill you. So the question is, when it comes to conquering anyone, is how do you secure the ground? You can bomb and bomb and bomb and bomb as much as you want, as the Americans found out in
Pacific.
Vietnam and in the Pacific too. In Afghanistan, the Russians found out in Afghanistan. So you can bomb and you can destroy. If you can't hold the ground, if you can't hold the cities, if you can't hold the fields, you can't really conquer a nation, right? So you've got a choice of either killing everybody. I mean, literally, you have to kill everybody, and then you walk into it, right, at your own leisure, or you have to have a really good plan on a ground assault and your supply chain. See, again, with a ground assault, I'm talking a little military history as well now. You need a supply chain that is foolproof, and that was the downfall for both Napoleon and Hitler as they attacked Russia. They got stuck in the winter, but the supply chain was also compromised, and the Russians, what they did, they practiced burned earth. So whenever they retreated, they burned everything down to the ground. There was
So
nothing.
they had
the Germans or
nothing.
the
So
French-
if they
That's
weren't
it.
retreating and they had to move forward again, they had nothing again.
Yep, correct.
Yeah,
So
burn earth. Yeah.
So where does it leave you? It leaves you. Well, how would you secure the United States of America? I mean, or the North American continent, for that matter? You would have to land a massive amount of troops. You would, right, physically. So either you drop them by air, which means thousands of planes, or potentially hundreds of massive tanker ships or freight ships that can transport the troops. In India, you have to get the troops from China. You have to get them across the Himalayas. Again, you could use freighter. You can use freighter ships and planes as well, but I think India would be a lot harder to hold because it doesn't have any. And no offense to
India.
our Indian listeners, but the infrastructure in India is not great. Okay, so the roads aren't great, the electricity network isn't great, and it's a little bit. It needs a little bit of development. In America, it's not fantastic either. They get brownouts, but it's a lot better. And certainly the road network,
It's
due to the
much
addiction
better
to the car,
indeed, yeah.
much better, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to disregard what your friend said. It's certainly a possibility, but you also have to look at it from a logistical point of view, which is worth conquering, or which is easier to conquer, right? In that sense, what has more of a chance of success? And I have to say to you, I don't think the Americans have very many troops at home. I mean, they have the National Guard and all that, but they have a lot of troops overseas. So they would have to recall all those troops to defend the homeland, whereas Indians are not deployed overseas anywhere. All their armies are up in the side in the north fighting the Pakistanis, right? So they're ready for battle. as a
But
word.
I think in the defence of China, with that example that they put forward, they would be military strikes only. And
okay. No conquest.
Texas
right.
would be pretty tough because it's everyone's the gun ownership is so high.
That's right.
Everyone's a renegade waiting to kill something, and I'm being nice to you guys. It's like I've always seen America in an odd way, having its origins more from the Wild West, and hate me, send me hate mail, right? Tell me how I'm wrong, please, because it's not like you're a bunch of hippies who hug each other and you're giving out love. You take your gun ownership rights very seriously, and I respect rules. So if you've got a rule that says you can do it, why not? Go ahead. Mm-hmm. And I think it would be tough, certainly for any ground troops or anyone parachuting in. If the plane didn't have American symbols on the side, those guys are toast before they hit the ground. Everyone's going to use it as, to aim, to get their eye back on their gun, yeah? So, I think any of these scenarios that China has put forward this week saying, you know what, we're militarily strong now, we have one aircraft carrier. That's good, because America now has 3 of their aircraft carriers surrounding your one.
Yes.
Did you hear that? America
Yes.
has their 3 aircraft carriers up there ready to go. They've got their AWACS in the air, and they've got their spy planes over the top. They're watching the whole thing. It's like watching someone's baby walk for the first time. They're right there. They're right next to them, waiting to see what's going to happen next.
And
to
that's the
discover
thing,
that
right?
they had a submarine flotilla of submarines, which was a complete surprise to everyone. No one knew.
Yeah. Oh no, that's and the Russians still have something similar, but there was the one trump card. They had the massive. Nuclear submarines. Mm-hmm. Look, and this is true. Having said that, we've always wondered how the next event would unfold. But Dave and I have been waiting for an event to come along before 2020 is our magic number, thereabouts. We don't want to nail it down, but certainly we need to be stopped. We think before we hit 7.78 billion. Mm-hmm. For various, we
don't want to be stopped. We think that they want it stopped.
Correct.
Yep.
That's correct. And I don't think it's just about resources. I really don't. I mean, if it had been that, and if it was that dire, in my opinion, is that space exploration and colonization, or certainly of Mars, maybe Io, maybe Ganymede, other moons, Europa, for example, right, in the solar system, and then further into the stars. Certainly, the asteroid belt could be mined as well.
Titan, we could be living on Titan.
Correct. So there's a whole bunch of stuff we could have done if in fact the population was such a concern, but the space program was stopped in its tracks after the Apollo missions, right? I think it went up to, Dave, help me out, was it 13 or 14, the last one?
I'll
whatever
get back
it was.
to in 1 second.
Yeah. So whatever so it was stopped, and it was essentially stopped in the 70s, right? The Russians didn't either continue, and it's only now that the Indians and the Chinese are showing an interest, and 30 years have elapsed, right? There are various reasons why this might be, and there are lots of conspiracies around it, but if we just take all of that to one side, if we just look at it from a very simple point of view, if we wanted to solve our problems, we would really have to look up and outwards, into space, to colonize, because that's if you stay static, you will die. Any system that doesn't grow or change will die. So our growth after this planet is outer space or the bottom of the ocean or whatever, right? But certainly not where we are right now, and certainly not having done anything for 30 years. I find this astonishing. A lot of money was pumped in it. They went to the moon and then they decided, oh, you know what, we've done it, and that's all we're going to do about it. Isn't it odd? Doesn't it strike anyone as odd? Really? And the Russians, by some agreement, said, yeah, you know what, the moon wasn't all it cracked up to be. No. This is, and then Mars, yeah, well, we looked at Mars, but, it's far, and it's, 6 months, I don't know. And what's there? What's really there? And this whole explorative spirit that everybody had is gone. Mm-hmm. Gone. It's disappeared. And now that, as I said, the Chinese and Indians are picking it up to some extent, but I just want to say that something is quite fishy about that, right? So it's not about population, it's not about resource consumption and all those wonderful things. It is truly, I believe, to keep our numbers down for various reasons. And it's not resource consumption.
No, it doesn't seem that way. Becky, by the way, there was 17 Apollo flights. And
thank you.
I think it was 18 that was mothballed and never flew.
Right. Okay.
With
That's billions, man. That's
yeah,
billions.
yeah, no, it is. Some of them returned, like 94 kilos of rock or 100 kilos of rock. And with all these kilos and kilos of moon rock that they brought back, most of it went missing.
Yeah, because there's an avid moon rock black market at work here.
Inside NASA, yeah.
It has to be, right?
Yeah. Who became
Put them in the shoebox. I don't know where it went, boss. It just went walkabouts.
Yeah, but it just landed, and I just opened up the thing, and it was already empty. Where'd it go? I don't know.
Where'd it go?
What? Why is your bag so heavy? No reason.
What bag? What? Look away. This is not the dirt you're looking for.
Do you know what? I typed in, just for you, Mackie, I typed into TSL the word secrets because we're talking about secrets at the moment. And
I think we are.
We are. And what I asked a question, at the beginning of this, and that was, what is it that why would you need to have a secret in the first place? And I just mentioned military secrecy.
Mm-hmm.
But what other, all the conspiracies that are out there and all the things that we've heard about, and why would the governments of the world take their tact that they've taken on, or take their tack? I suppose you tack in a boat, don't you?
That's correct.
Yeah. Why would they do this? What's your take on why?
Well, think about it. Yeah, look, it's a fair point, right? I mean, the one thing that infuriates me is not so much that something is secret, but it's secret from me, right? I don't know about it. I know everybody out there feels the same way because we are adults, for the most part. We are smart enough. We're grown-ups, and we should be able to be trusted with these things. If we are trusted with procreating, driving a car, and owning a gun, right? Then they should tell us more stuff. So but why then would they not? And the answer is complex, I think, and also quite simple. And the simple answer is it's power. The more knowledge you hold personally, the more powerful you are. And of course, the more powerful the knowledge is, or the more power it confers on you, right? Mm-hmm. The more powerful you become. So these secrets, which must be quite potent in their own right, are held by a few, and I mean really a few people, a handful of people, I would imagine, and it is where they derive their power from. By keeping us in the dark, by keeping us technologically in the dark, maybe 60, 70, maybe 100 years back to where we should be, maybe more, by keeping us in the dark about our origins, by keeping us in the dark about the true nature of the cosmos, or the true nature of our interactions with others, I mean others in the loosest sense of the word. They keep us in the dark, and they keep all that power for them. It puts them in an excellent position to stay in power. Now, if you are in power, you want to stay there. That's your first goal. And you also don't want really anyone else coming in, because one thing that a static system doesn't like is change. Because guess what? As soon as you introduce something new into a static system, it changes. And that's really not very helpful for someone in power. So people need to be kept out, because you can trust the people that are there to some extent. New people, don't know about new people. That's why most secret societies have these layers and layers and layers of membership, right? And one initiation after another, and so forth, until you're like 100,000 years old before you get anywhere. The point is, though, to vet anyone that has any ideas or ideals that are contrary to the people in power, right? This is very, very important. So you have this body of knowledge, and I'm sure there's new knowledge that comes along every day, which is kept very close to their chest, okay? And the closer it's kept to the chest, the more you need to keep people out, the more misinformation you need to spread. Sometimes drip, drop, drop, you can put some information out there, which you can then discredit, and just to see who is interested. That's what I would do, right? If I was
and that's
in charge,
what they are doing.
right? Exactly. So let's seed some information. Let's see who bites. Those are the guys I'm interested in. Those are the guys I'm going to focus my attentions on. The vast majority of us, and this is horrible, but it's true, very happy to, drink their Pepsi Pops, have their fast food burger, this and that, some fried chicken with that, and watch the next reality show and see what the Kardashians are doing. Again, I'm picking on the Kardashians, but they're just easy on the tongue. Most of the people just don't care. In fact, they will actively try not to know, right? So Dave and I have had this experience, and if you're listening to us, you may have had a similar experience, where you talk about something that you find interesting, fascinating, may it be alien life, or it might be, some kind of conspiracy theory, ancient cultures, ancient aliens, well, whatever. Doesn't really matter what your particular thing is. People will actively not listen to you, right? I call it active disengagement. And
You're so right, Mickey.
right? And for a small minority, you are entertainment, but for the vast majority, you are a threat to everything that they've come to hold dear. Bill Hicks, I don't know if you're familiar with this particular American comedian. I think he's brilliant. He said it best. Everybody takes everything so seriously. Oh, look at me. I've got these worry wrinkles in my forehead, and I'm worrying about my money and my cash. And it must be because, look at me, I'm so important. And what he goes on to say is, and it's all right. Life is all right. Now, I don't entirely agree with that. I mean, there are certain things that we should take seriously. But he's right, certainly, in the fact that people take all the wrong things seriously. They focus on all the wrong things. And, of course, the people in power know this. They're not stupid, right? They use all of that. I mean, this goes right back to the beginning. The earliest written texts we have, and the earliest, reports of empire, talk about people and what you need to keep them in check. You need to feed them, and you need to entertain them. All right. The Romans called it bread and games, so they gave them bread, and they gave them the Circus Maximus and the arenas and the Colosseum and all those other things. Where people would be torn limb from limb, either by each other or wild animals. They even recreated sea battles, believe it or not, in Rome in the Colosseum. But the point is that you need to look at it from their point of view, not your point of view, because your point of view is small, like an ant. You look at it from the point of view of the powerful, the elite, the people that hold all the strings, and everything becomes very clear. You understand why things happening. You understand. Oh yeah, okay, of course it makes sense. It doesn't make sense to you. It doesn't make sense in your life. You wouldn't do it because you're not that person. You don't live that life. Yeah, you weren't born into it. They do. So looking at it from your point of view is wrong. I think I used this quote before. Marcel Proust, I think, said this. Or Voltaire. I think it was Marcel Proust. To start a journey, you don't need new legs or new shoes. You need new eyes. I'm paraphrasing. You have to get new eyes. You have to change the way you look at the world if you really understand what's going on and broaden your horizons. So put your opinions to one side, what people should and shouldn't do. You probably went to Sunday school. You probably had some kind of religious education, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, Jewish, otherwise, and throw all of that out the window, because none of that applies to the elite. All right? They have no empathy. They have no concept of sin. They have no concept of wrongdoing. There's no concept of good or evil. There's only what is good for me. All right? So, sorry, Dave, long answer, short question.
Yeah. Mental note to self, don't ask Becky a question. No, I'm kidding. You've had longer answers.
I have. Sorry.
Why ask the question? Why ask the question? There's a Freudian slip for you. No, why the hiding of stuff? And you answered in there, and that was that just the people wouldn't be ready for it, to be honest, for whatever that information is, and because they like what they've got. We've got the same examples. When Mackie and I, we've got the show now, and so we don't party, like we don't have attend each other's parties anymore, and because we've got the show and we got it all out of our system. But when it used to be that we would have 6 months up our sleeve and we'd talk about You know, the interest from around us in the party would grow, and they'd be watching us like TV, but they'd turned
that's
off. They'd turn off when they stop, when they went home. Maybe if we were lucky, they'd talk about it in the car, but unlikely on their journey home, because you don't talk. It's very rare that we talk about the TV show you just turned off.
You're right,
After
sir.
you've
They're
turned it
tourists.
Yeah,
They
so
were just
they're
tourists.
information tourists, and that's pretty much, that was the limit of the enjoyment. But occasionally, Meki and I would get people who would ask questions, and you know, when you ask Meki or I a question, don't spit your coffee out. You know, there's going to be an answer, and not all the people are ready for those answers. And so I was talking to a dear friend of mine. I haven't seen her for years and years, and she lives in England. She, PhD, BA, MA, she's done everything about everything, and she's a superb human being. And she asked the question last night, which I thought was extraordinary coming from her point of view. And it was, why aren't we people of love? Because we could be. We went back to, we were talking about biblical texts, and I was comparing her references to the biblical text to the Sumerian texts, and she would give me a line from there, and I would match it as well. And we were comparing notes, and seeing what happened. Like, how could we both know what we like, and we were comparing notes. And I brought up the Vatican. And I said the Vatican has already prepared itself and its religion for the introduction of aliens into our psyche as being real, like an announcement. It's already prepared. It's ready to go. The Vatican itself isn't just a religious order. It's a scientific order with its own telescope. In fact, it's got the largest binoculars on Earth, up on a mountain. Google it. It's called Lucifer. It's a stereoscopic.
Is that right?
And it's called Lucifer.
How about that?
And it's something else. Once again, I've done nothing but watch documentaries all week, and and I've Googled alongside. I don't just watch YouTube. This is on history and Discovery Science, and you name it. I'm all over it. Mm-hmm. So where something doesn't match, I'll do research and try and find the truth in it. But I thought what was really interesting about this was that she didn't know about the Lucifer Project. And when I told her it's just a stereoscopic thing, they're looking for exoplanets and stars, and they're also looking in the deep infrared with the Lucifer. And what do you think they're looking for? Planet
Heaven,
X.
hell?
Planet X.
Are they?
Who
really?
isn't looking for Planet X right now? And that was one of those things, and I thought that was something else. So when I brought it up, I told her to go and have a look to see what she could find, and sure enough, it's all there. It's on the same mountain, along with the other telescope, and they're scientists. In fact, they're astronomers. Used to have a TV show in Italian, which was talking about the existence of life elsewhere. They've already prepared their not sermons, but the attitude of the church.
Press releases? Really?
Well, the attitude of the church and how will it need for them? What's their need for change? So when they started out, nearly 13 years ago, around about 2000, when they started out, they had an idea, sure, but now they know. They know how it is, and they've found references in the Bible they can use, and one of those is in reference to the Nephilim.
Aha.
So the Nephilim, outside of the Bible, if it wasn't in there, if it hadn't made it to it, they really wouldn't have a very good position to stand on, except for just pure acceptance of whatever happens next. But what their quote is that God. And I'm not going to be misquoted here because there's definitely different versions of the Bible everywhere. But the gist of it was that if God made the Nephilim and they exist as well as us, he makes a reference to them in saying that they're all part of the same flock. Like that we know that you're different, but the Catholic Church said something interesting, and it was that maybe they've still got a true connection to God, like a communication channel, because they're not here, they're still up there. So if we find them up there, maybe we can talk to them and find out more information about our true God. And maybe God isn't a singular, maybe it's a group. And I think if we start to think like that, of course with aliens, that, selective panspermia was one of the original thoughts, that, asteroids were flung here, either randomly flung here or intentionally flung here by another species to populate the Earth like a seed bus. Flick that thing towards Earth and make it populated. We'll get to it later on. Quite possible. It's all possible. It's all up there in the plausible levels, yeah?
It's being discussed, again, if you want to stay with the mainstream, it's being discussed by the mainstream. Panspermia was, in fact, raised by the mainstream. But you know what it also addresses? Interestingly enough, it would address why we would be compatible DNA-wise with visitors, as it were.
That's right. But what it doesn't say, and this is part of the conversation I had with my friend, was it says everywhere in all the ancient cultures that we were made in their image, which means they made us to look like them. Because we didn't have any part of this. It was them, the visitors, doing the making. Whoever those visitors were, they were doing the making, and they made us to look like them. They didn't make us look different. So that's the important step, and we came to the agreeance last night, which was great, that is in fact what happened, according to the biblical texts, and I rose that of the Sumerian text. The reason why I had a very deep conversation with my friend, it was like more than 3 hours last night, was because today we were supposed to be interviewing Jason Martell, and I've got all the show notes ready to go, and I'm just waiting for him. Hopefully he'll wake up in the next few minutes, or he's had a really big day and just slept through his alarm to be on the show. But we'll bring you him at a later date if he can't make it tonight. And no hard feelings, it's all good. But I did manage to interview someone today, Meki.
Yeah.
And that was Brian Foster in Peru. Did an offline interview with him, and it was streamed to YouTube, but there was no one there to watch it while it was streaming. It was just sort of impromptu because of the news story that came up this week, Meki, with the DNA results for the Paracas skulls.
That was fascinating stuff. Again, similar to the Star Child skull DNA analysis, there were some anomalies, I want to call them. The preliminary results are that they're anomalies, meaning, yes, humanish, not entirely though, right? And the key thing here is not just that these skulls, apart from the DNA analysis, there are serious differences with the physiological structure of those skulls, which cannot be explained simply by the process of boarding. Boarding being
cradle boarding.
Cradle boarding, correct, sir. So essentially, you take a baby's skull and you bind it with boards, timber or otherwise, and so it grows a certain way, usually elongated and sometimes with a flat forehead. It doesn't really matter. The point is that these physiological differences cannot be explained by cradle boarding, and the DNA analysis, the preliminary DNA analysis, can also not be explained by cradle boarding. Guess what? Cradle boarding does not change your DNA. It really doesn't.
Yeah, no, that's true. And something comes out in the interview which is really great, and I'll post a link in the chat room, and we'll get to playing that. Probably not today.
That's the music, sir.
There it is. Look, we'll see you on the other side of the break, Shiny Side Outers. Enjoy. Get yourself a coffee, and maybe have a toilet break. We'll see you then. Stay tuned.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. And we'll be right back after this message.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
There is no denying the world is awakening. We see it in the global uprisings and demonstrations of the people around the planet and the new way of thinking and living that is arising naturally within each one of us and our communities. I have been a major player in this global shift and movement for over 20 years and have helped tens of thousands of people around the world change their lives and find their voice in order to help create the paradigm change we so desperately need. Join me here at Revolution Radio on the Just Bernard Show every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time for 2 hours of powerful interviews and discussion with some of the most influential visionaries of consciousness, alternative media, and suppressed knowledge. We promise to reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience.
Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. Thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. If you plan to call in and speak with one of our hosts, please turn down your radio and separate yourself from any background noise and wait for the area code to be called on before you speak. And don't forget, Revolution Radio freedomslips.com is listener supported. So stop by the homepage, freedomslips.com, visit the site support area to help support the host you're listening to's airtime. Thank you. Revolution Radio freedomslips.com, where the truth never sleeps. Revolution Radio. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
You're back with Dave and Mackie's Shiny Side Out on freedomslips.com. That's right, the #1 listener-supported talk radio on the net, as Hawk has just pointed out. Since it is listener-funded radio, guys, if you like what you hear and you would like it to go on, please go to freedomslips.com and push the donate button on the site support page. It's on the left in the chat. I'm looking at it right now. There it is. Your donation is greatly appreciated and, in fact, runs this station. Okay, so please help us out here. We're halfway through show number 2 and 100, or if you're boring and want to call it 102, that's fine by me. So that's what we're here. We're talking about secrets. We're talking about a whole bunch of stuff. In fact, we also were meant to bring you Jason Martell, who seems to have slept through. As Dave said, no hard feelings. We all know what it feels like. He's a busy guy, so it's understandable that we do hope to bring him to you at another time. Dave, sir, how are you going?
Oh, we're doing great. You know, and do you know what I forgot to do during my first read-in? I forgot to thank Solaris for another great show.
She always does. I missed it today. I have to listen to it later.
Me too, but I'll tell you that she's awesome. She's so awesome. And
she is.
Just for anyone who's maybe read my book, I did an interview with her during the week, a 2-hour interview. So see if you can catch that. It was pretty good. I don't know what it was, where it was, what was going on, but you know, she's great, and you know, thank you so much for that. Hey, Mackie, back onto that on those skulls, yeah. There was something that was really good about the interview, and I ask everyone to jump onto our channel and have a look. It's just Shiny Side Out. It's YouTube/Shiny Side Out. Check it out, because to answer you know, once and for all of the internet chat or flap, as someone put it in one of the comments about the skull, I just decided to, you know, ask our old friend Brian to talk about it. And one thing I forgot to mention was that they sent the DNA called GenBank. The name of the place that you send it to is called GenBank. Very interesting that a sequence came back unknown. Of course, GenBank holds the DNA for all life on Earth that we've found so far. And, you know, they just crush it up, put it in the machine rebuilds it. Like, the best way to describe it is, you know those the paper shredders that shred into diamonds? Mm-hmm. The super secure shredders. And they shred it into little diamond pieces. Well, the machine will reassemble it. And there's a computer program that can reassemble a shredded document even when it's done into diamonds. You just make them fall down past the cameras, and it photographs all the pieces and then reassembles the document for you.
Okay.
The same kind of processing that's required for that is what scans through the DNA and looks for similarities and rebuilds the DNA. Now, it's so successful that it works for all life on Earth so far. Even, you know, someone finds something like, you know, say we found a new fish that no one had seen before. We get a sample, crush it up, put it through the machine, and voila, it'll tell us, look, it's so similar that its nearest neighbor is this thing, done. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it came up with a sequence unknown. Now, the sequence similarity is, you know, I'm speculating, but if it was 2% different, that's us to chimps right there.
Yeah, this is really the thing. What you have to realize here, guys, is that if there's such a big difference in the DNA, which it may not, but you know, let's say it is 2%, that's a new species. Okay, that's no longer Homo sapiens. So you got Homo habilis, you got Homo erectus. You know, you got a whole bunch of different hominids or hominoids, actually hominids, stretching back through time. And again, that's contentious in my mind, whether or not they are our ancestors, but that's a different story. But it is now a different species. Okay, and no, I'm not saying anything else apart from that. All I'm saying is
there was an if species. At the beginning of that, by the way, everyone. There was an if.
Yes, if. Mm-hmm. Now, if. Yeah, that's right. If now, but the thing is this. That's all it says, though. It's a different species. I mean, what else has happened here is a different question. I mean, is this a different species that has survived unnoticed for such a long time because they're so remote? You know, are they hidden on purpose? I mean, just judging by their brain volume, it's and if brain equates to intelligence, they're a lot smarter than we are, right? There are things that are not quite clear around exactly who they are, what their purpose is, what they're doing, and in fact, if they are still around, right? I mean, are they still with us? Hidden. Plato, believe it or not, in fact, was meant to have a skull like that. Socrates as well was meant to have had a skull like this.
Yeah.
Okay, an elongated skull. You always see him with a helmet perched at the back of his head, which you couldn't do, trust me, because your skull isn't long enough. But so if it were a different species, I mean, why is that such a hard thing to believe? We find new species all the time. Dennis Overman, Homo forensis, sorry. Neanderthal man, and they're all tumbling in now, because we are penetrating more and more into the unknown areas of the world to some extent. We're finding more and more stuff because there's just more people out there that are finding more stuff. And a lot of the things that we find, and sorry, Dave, just want to make one quick point on this, is luck. It's luck. It's blind luck. The Nag Hammadi rolls. Remember the scrolls? Do you remember the scrolls that were found in Nag Hammadi by this guy Muhammad? He was a farmer. He was just tilling his field back in the early 20th century. He took it home. He found it in an urn. It was an earthenware pot. It was buried next to a rock next to his field. He found it. It was a couple of books in there, leather-bound scrolls and a few loose-leaf sheets. He took it home. You know what happened? His mom took the loose-leaf sheets and used it as kindling. Who knows what we lost there information-wise, right? And then the rest was sold on the black market, and only recently, relatively recently, have we been able to establish where they came from and been able to get a whole picture on the Nag Hammadi rolls. A million scrolls were burnt in the Library of Alexandria. Or so legend goes anyway. Other things, Heinrich Schliemann found Troy because he followed Homer's writing. Homer, the Ulysses, and the Iliad. So he just went where Homer said it would be, and he found it. Now, no respectable scientist at the time did that. A lot of the things we're finding these days are entirely luck. It's luck, guys. Okay, it's trial and error. Yeah, that's science as well. We just get lucky, and we find we find some of the other stuff, and we discard it. Dave and I, we talked about this at length. All the archaeological finds we no longer talk about. There was a gold chain embedded in coal. You can say whatever you want. You can't talk it away. Okay, there was a nail. There was a shoe print. A shoe, not a footprint. A shoe print. In a fossilized shoe print at that. And they're also footprints fossilized, meaning they're rock now, and they're real because they've cut the rock open and they looked at the sandstone, I think it was. I'm not sure what kind of stone it was, but they looked at the pressure. Boom, exactly right. So it was not carved in. The pressure layers were coincidental with actual footprints made by someone like us. So there's a lot of stuff. Right, and these skulls are just another thing on top of all the mysteries, right? Which everybody wants to take away from you. Nobody wants to tell you about it. Not the school, not the authorities, not the universities, right? That's all stuff you should not waste your time with. Right?
There's something I really like, and you might like this too, Mekki. I remember we talked about this when it came up as a news story. But just to remind everyone. During some road construction in the United States, and it's a big place with lots of towns, so forgive me, I don't remember the town, but they were expanding the road widthways. They were putting another lane on, and when they went through a small undulating hill, they had to wipe out some of that hill. When they did that, they broke into a cave. There was a cave right next to the road. And there was no entrance, but they broke into this. And did they invite all the cameras in to go and have a look at this thing? No. It didn't look man-made. There was no reports of that. There wasn't hobo lives next to road, house been opened up by road. There was no headlines or anything. It was cave found by road, and then it was sealed back up again. Mm-hmm. They say they found stuff in there. There are artifacts in there, but it was sealed back up. They just concreted over the front of this cave. They obviously called the right people. They went in and said, just seal it up. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of thing's so disappointing. You know, there's the military guys who talk about a cave, and I'll remember his name, but he says that they when he was working for the military, he was going along a cave, and then there was a adjoining cave, like a tunnel, and the adjoining tunnel's walls were smooth like glass. Mm-hmm. And he just asked his boss, "What's going on with this? You know, ours are all rough, either just pure stone or it's smoothed over with concrete, and this looks like it's been cut with something that I've never seen before, and it's like glass. What is it?" And he goes, "There's nothing to see here. Move along." And him and his friends at the time decided they were going to get a posse together. You could drive a Jeep in it was so big. And they were loading up the Jeep, and they got in trouble. Mm-hmm. And they go, "Where are you going to go?" "Nowhere." "You weren't going in that cave, were you?" "No, sir." And they declined. They didn't go down there. That could have been a find of the century, yeah? But yeah. It's already been found. A lot of our stuff is already, and I don't want to use the word discovered. Yes, you could personally discover something.
Yep.
I discovered that a round wheel, when I was very young, is more efficient than a square wheel.
Well done.
I didn't invent it. It was already invented. Christopher Columbus, to all the Americans, did not discover America. Mm-hmm. He discovered a land people are already at. That's what happened. They were already living there.
Yes, sir.
You know, Captain Cook did not discover Australia. He did on behalf of the English government, but there were people living here for 40 up to 70,000 years before he got here.
Yeah.
So you know, Madame Curie, she didn't invent or create. She found a relationship which was then she was able to describe what radiation is and radioactivity is.
And she paid highly for it. But you're right, Dave. Yeah. This is very true.
So we're stumbling into things, and it's the stumbling that gets us somewhere at least.
There's something I want to share with you. I just remembered it, and then I quickly Googled it because we live in the age of Google. I read a while ago in a magazine, Nexus, one of the better, or maybe even the best magazine of this subject matter in Australia. You can't buy it in the States, guys. I told you why. Because it's got alternative health supplements. You can't buy it in the States. It's banned in the States. You can buy it in Europe, but essentially there was a story about, and this is Death Valley. And the story relates a person called Death Valley Scotty, who was an eccentric apparently, who spent millions building a castle estate in the area, Death Valley. And when he went to go prospecting, apparently he found a cave, because we're talking about caves right now. This was in 1947, and it appeared in the Nevada paper on August 5, 1947. You can find that story for yourselves if you've got access to microfiche. Now, Hill said the caves were discovered in 1931 by Dr. F. Bruce Russell, a Beverly Hills physician, right, who literally fell in while skiing a shaft while sinking, not skiing, there's no skiing in Death Valley, while sinking a shaft for a mining claim, right? Now, and for years, apparently, he tried to get people interested in those caves, but nobody believed him. Now, apparently, this is what he found. This is Dr. Bruce Russell. He found several caverns contain, mummified remains of a race of people 8 to 9 feet tall. Not the first time we hear about that. Mm-hmm. They wore some kind of zoot-like suit, like a hair garment of medium-length jacket and knee-length trousers. So not roughshod, but tailored things. And apparently, the cavern contained a ritual hall with devices and markings similar to the Masonic Order. I know that some of you would like that. Also, there was a long tunnel which led to another room, and this is, I guess, where it gets a bit tinfoil heady. There were remains of dinosaurs, saber-toothed tigers, imperial elephants, and other extinct beasts, and they were paired off in niches as though they were on display in a museum-like hall, if you will. Okay, now, this is the interesting bit. there were implements found of the civilization, right? Including household utensils and stoves, which apparently cooked by radio waves. This was in 1947, guys.
Yep.
1947, and that's as far as I'm going to go with this. But so my point is, you probably never heard of this, guys, unless you read that particular issue of the Nexus magazine, or you're an aficionado in ancient or old newspapers, and you actually went to the Nevada paper that had this story. But my point is that this, Dave is right. It's all out there. It's wide open. We just choose to ignore it, or others make that choice for us. You know what, Mackie? You don't need to know about that. I'll just look that up over here. Thank you very much. You just do too much thinking as it is.
Do you know, there's a lot of good information, and we try and bring it to you. We do the hard yards, the work, and bring it to you. If you're an armchair enthusiast who doesn't like to Google and sit through endless hours of documentaries you'll never get back to time on, that's what we do for you. We bring the data to you. And look, I've just received a message from one of our listeners. His name is Australian Paul, and he says that where he lives, he's having a lot of issues. There are a lot of bushfires going on right now. He said there's 78 fires in Victoria right now, still burning.
Oh, yeah.
So look, we feel for anyone who's in strife. The best thing you can do, if you can, is stay safe, listen to the warnings, have your preparedness plan, and be ready to act when it's required. Don't act before that; it could put your life in danger. So yes, Mickey, that's some extraordinary factual information coming from that article. It matches really closely that of that cave that adjoined the road.
Yeah.
They found artifacts and a whole bunch of stuff in there. Do you know, the Paracas people were giants in comparison to the height of the people who live where they live, being like 5.5 foot tall. Yeah. Maybe 5'5" is the average height in Peru. The Paracas people, however, were maybe 6 to 6.5 feet tall. That makes them giants. Remember, even the Bible talks about giants.
Yes.
Who did David have to go and beat? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Goliath, sir.
That's right. He was a giant.
Yep.
What I think is interesting here is the pre-flood myths, Meki, the giants, the people who live forever. It's just lucky enough that we happened across these skulls. It's lucky enough that they happened to. Apparently, where they lived, they were treated like royalty. Is the ancients, the tales to do with these people with white, sandy brown or red hair. They had red hair, genetically red, not dyed red hair. That's the Paracas people. They were treated like royalty. What giants, Meki, weren't treated like royalty, hey?
No, absolutely. And I mean, look, even these days, and I want to think of your company structure here for a second, or where you work, or whom you associate with, or whom we hold in high regard. Tall people, statistically, rise higher within a company than short people. Not always, but statistically. So if you're tall, your chances of success are much higher than if you were short. This is just something, I guess, in our DNA, if you will, right? Now, I want to say something else about these giants. Okay, this is important because we have evidence of that particular thing that survived up until today. So the Bible talks about these giants as well, right? They have 6 fingers and 6 toes in the Bible. Well, you can take the Bible or you leave it, whatever you want to do. Point is, there are legends of 6-fingered and 6-toed people, giants. Why is this important, Dave? I'll tell you why. Because our system of timekeeping is base 6, not base 10, or base 12 if you will, but not base 10. It makes sense, in my mind, for our timekeeping to be base 10, base 20, base 5, I don't care what, right? But it should reflect the digits that we have on us, right?
To count.
5, right? To count, yeah. So that would make sense to me, but no. In fact, geometry, similarly, a circle is described by 360 degrees. Why? Why 360 degrees? Why not 100 degrees?
Mm-hmm.
Just bear with me. Hours are made, so a minute is made up of 60 seconds. 60 minutes make an hour. 24 hours make a day. All right, again, base 6, base 12. And then you've got 365, 366 days in a year. So it doesn't even make sense from a day point of view. We don't have 360 days in a year. You could if you did some fancy math. But the
You
point
could
is
chop
we don't.
some around, that the
Yeah.
hours would be never consistent.
Yeah, you could, but it's not right. So it doesn't make sense, because you could argue, well, Mackie, there's 360 days in a year, and no, they're not. They're not. They're close to it, but they're not. So we got two possibilities here, right? And maybe they coincide. So maybe at one point in the past, the day was in fact 360 days long.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, the year. The year was 360 days long. Maybe. And then it makes sense why a circle is 360, because then, the year, you get the circle of the seasons, all that makes sense. But that was in the past. So for some reason, it is now 6 days longer on average, right? 6 days longer, 5 to 6 days longer. Why? Who knows? Again, or it was always 365, 66 days long. And the people that were counting right back in the beginning, not in the beginning, but certainly as far as we're concerned, had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot. Because then it makes perfect sense to use that as the base system. Oh yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 3, yeah, that makes sense. Thank you very much. So 5 of those makes 60 seconds, and then you have the natural development of the mathematics and so forth that goes with it. It does not make any sense right now. Our timekeeping system makes no sense whatsoever. If anybody out there, and this is a challenge to the skeptics, to the scientists, that you can call me stupid, explain to me why it is base 6, base 12. Explain to me why that is, and I will shut up. Okay, I will publicly say here that I made a mistake and I don't understand things, and I'm just stupid. But if you can explain to me why that is, right, then I'll be very, very happy. That's one of the cornerstones really that we need to focus on, because it has survived to the present day. We haven't changed time. Metric system came and went. Okay, so we've changed the imperial measures, and by the way, all those imperial measures as well as the metric system, they are based in reality, right? There's actually a reason why it is what it is. Okay, there really is. There isn't a reason why a circle is 360 degrees, and there's no reason why there are 60 seconds in a minute. Okay, so that's something I want you to think about. But
I'm gonna back Meki up on this one for a minute. There was an April Fool's joke about adopting metric time and metric days.
Mm-hmm.
There was one. It was an April Fool's joke. It had a full documentary based around it, how more efficient it would be to only have 10 hours a day, not repeating the amount of hours twice a day. So there's a 2 o'clock twice a day, right? One's AM, one's PM. Their documentary was built in such a fashion for you to favor the outcome. Going to metric would be great. It would be confusing, yeah, sure, but we'd all get used to it. So you'd only work 4 hours a day. Well, 3 hours a day. Yeah, being a third of the day. 3.3 hours to be precise. If we work, 3 8 to 24, if we do an 8-hour day at work, then it would be 3.3 days, 3.3 hours. The measurement, from what I understand from my education, about it was just a wild guess. Everything's divided by 12 or a base 6. You're right, Meki, for measurement, for degrees, for inches as well.
Yep.
It was a foot, which was 12, base 6 still,
Yep.
two times.
Yep.
The amount of measurements you could make of the astronomical units, it doesn't make any difference whether you measure them in base 10 for ease of mathematics, or you make them in anything else. You could have counted them by 14s, like a base 14. It doesn't make any. Base 15. No, base 17. There you go. Prime. So you could have used any reference, but to make it mathematically easier to calculate, like miles and feet in miles, and it does my head in. When you base your entire with a decimal system, it's based on water. the measurement of 1 kilo or 10 by 10 by 10 cubic centimeters of water is 1 kilo, the whole thing seems to be really easy. We presume the size of water is constant at sea level under this barometric pressure. There's still too many variables, Mickey.
Yes.
And that, because if you went to another planet with different gravity, water wouldn't have this much pressure put on it, and therefore it would be bigger, and all of our measurements would be thrown out the toilet. It should be measured on something like the hydrogen atom as a multiple of that. Everything should be. It's crazy. It should be called atomic weights rather than a kilo or a measurement system.
There's just a very interesting theory that came in from Raz in the chat room. He postulates, and I would like to get the links for that because I haven't actually seen it. He says that the Babylonians counted, or Sumerians for that matter, counted each joint in the finger, so 1, 2, 3, right, per finger, with the thumb, which makes 12, right? But not counting the thumb joint.
Like an abacus.
That's what it says here, right? So if that were true, that would be a good explanation. I'd like to get some more information on that. So like I said, if someone can give me explanation, that sounds like a really good explanation. I would like to understand more about it, because it's the first I've heard about it.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
I agree.
Yeah, you
Thank
walk
you,
around
Raz.
with your own personal abacus. Well done.
Yep. So Raz, we are all about bringing more information to everybody. So if something doesn't fit what we believe, then we need to change our view. But I would really like to find out more about that. So if anybody can give me some more information on that, except that would be really great. I really appreciate that.
So the only reason we split the sky up was to be able to predict where things were in it. So I like that. I like you know what? I was watching a doco, Mickey, on this one, and it was the elements and what's the chart of elements?
Periodic table?
The periodic table. That's exactly what it is. So the periodic table, it means period. So the table itself, it took a long time to get it right, and the guy postulated the atomic weight. This segue of each atom, of each kind of material, was and should have been put into order. But he discovered there was particular groups of elements, and the elements themselves, being in these groups, and we have like inert metal or noble metals. We have things that will kill us instantly, like arsenic, yeah, and there's, whether they're alkaline or acid, they're in groupings in the table, and it sort of makes sense. And when you look along the periodic table, you can see how that makes sense and how it was discovered. In fact, they didn't discover all the elements. There was gaps. And the gaps, they said, we've got to find that element. There's one that's in that gap. And it wasn't until it became a predictable sequence that we really understood what we were doing. And it is the only way to display that table. If we were to go somewhere else and show them the same thing, they go, aha, yeah, we discovered that 10 billion years ago. Good for you. You found it. Yeah? Just like my example with the wheel. I worked it out personally, but it took humans, it was done a long time ago. Have you ever come up with something, Meki, that someone else has already come up with?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I believe we're just tapping into the same kind of thing. I like to call it the Akashic record, but yes, I have.
Yep. So it's that very thing, right? So it wasn't until that was solved, until the table itself was constructed and the width of it and the groupings of it could have been put together, could we then make something that was predictable and left gaps that we could continue research until we filled them up. That part of science was a leap forward like no one's business. In my thoughts, yes, you can design anything you like. You have to have an outcome. Yeah, you have to be able to discover more about it. And I really hope I'm putting this down the way that I feel about it. It's because there are certain discoveries in history which make all the difference for the rest of history. And of course, we talk about Einstein and him slamming himself over the constant that he kept removing and re-adding again to make his equation work, where he was actually right in the first place to leave it in. Because it wasn't a constant, it was actually a variable. He was, there was an error in his equation and he couldn't get his head together and see where he was wrong in it. But he wasn't wrong at all, and it was his misjudgment of himself that caused him to put the constant in. I think this kind of thing is great. It's one of those inventions. It's one of those things that we needed to move forward. So, where were we at, Mekki? We were talking about secrets earlier on.
Correct, sir.
And we sort of moved on to giants and the secrets that
I'm
holds about
busy.
our future. I know you're busy.
Yes.
So
I'm busy googling through the base 60, and so far they have been. No, look, it's a great idea. But it's a possibility only. It is not a definite. So I still maintain that it is possible that there were at one point people that had 6 and 6, so 6 fingers, 6 toes. But anyway, I think it's a very interesting proposition, though, the counting system that Ras put forward. But yes, look, why talk about it? Why talk about the things we talk about, Dave? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Why talk about the giants and the secrets and all that? Because if you don't, then the information will truly get lost. If we don't keep bringing it up, then the information will just go away, and that's exactly what certain parties, interested parties, would like to happen. Right? They want us to be to have amnesia about the past. They want us to forget. That's a shame, because as a race, we actually do suffer from amnesia. We've had cultures in the past we cannot recall at all. We found Göbekli Tepe, right? The Potbelly Hill, and we have no idea, zero idea what happened there. We found ruins in the jungles of South America. We find lots of ruins now, Dave, in Africa. Right?
That's right.
And we have no idea. We just don't know what happened there. We don't know who built them. We don't know what happened to the people that built them. And we don't know what kind of development they had. Because, there must have been development. You don't just build a city, because you feel like it one day. It's the Göbekli Temple, which seems to have been buried on purpose. What, to protect it? I don't know. Mm-hmm. And who recarved the Sphinx? We know every representation you see of the Sphinx is in anatomically correct proportions if you buy it in the gift shop. The actual thing itself is not. The head is tiny. The Sphinx would have the brain the size of a walnut compared to the rest of its body. Right? So it was recarved. It's painfully obvious, in fact. So yeah, but sorry, I didn't want to interrupt your train of thought, sir.
Oh, no, look, what I was really saying, and I think it's summable. What was that the Socrates quote about knowing, then you know nothing. If you it's equivalent to if you think you know something, then you know nothing.
Oh no, he was the smartest. Socrates was the smartest man. The Oracle of Delphi. Someone went to the Oracle of Delphi and they said, "Who's the smartest man in the world?" Mm-hmm. And the Oracle said, "It's Socrates." And because he said, I know that I know nothing.
That's right. Yeah. And you know what? I think that as we keep finding more and more stuff and have to scratch our heads more, it's only inevitable at some point that we will have to work it out. We'll have to work out, what are we going to work out? Maybe that there was a pre-flood civilization.
Several, I would say.
I know. The same here. We agree about this, right? And the people of the time, wherever they were just like us in our way of thinking. Everyone has been like us. I watched some films, some black and white films, and you look at the paintings from a long time ago. We haven't changed. We're the same. We are humans. And it doesn't matter what we've got in our hand, whether it's a mobile phone or a gun or whoever we are. I think I think we do need to make some changes, and I think we need to embrace change a lot more than we do. For those people out there, if you looking on YouTube and you see all this, doomsday, end of the world stuff, all the different scenarios we could possibly end ourselves as a race of people on the planet, like DA14 coming through in 2023, Apophis in 2036. If there's a global financial collapse, I'm sure most of us will probably survive that. If there was a huge catastrophic earthquake and landslips by some country, resulting in a huge tidal surge or something like that. There's so many different things. You know what? Be you, whoever you are. Be you. Know what it is. Know what it is to be you, and rebuild. If we have all this, I'm going to be too esoteric here for a minute, but if we have all this anger and hatred in us, and we just want to kill everything and wipe the planet clean of resources and sell it, and I didn't even talk about the government this week. If we want to do all that, for what extent? What is the outcome? If you look around you right now outside, and hopefully you're not looking at someone else's apartment window across the void. If you can see what our landscape should be, maybe close your eyes and dream it. Why don't we make the changes that make that happen? Instead of being the frog literally in that boiling water analogy, which isn't real.
You've been DNM'd by Dave now.
Do you know what I mean?
That's good. You're right. Look, I'm with you. I'm with you, sir. You're 100% correct. No,
make the changes. Don't take it. I think we're doing a lot more taking than we are giving.
And you know what? If you want to see change, then now this is going to sound really horribly American, pop motivation. Be the change.
Yeah, be the change. I like that.
You be the change. You complain about other people, and that's cool. I do it too. Then ask yourself, well, right? You know what? I'm going to do it this way now. I'm going to be different. I'm going to do this. I'm going to help this person, or I'm going to do something better, or whatever it might be. It doesn't matter, because if Dave and I have it right, not just us, in fact, but you know what I realized, Dave? I've been reading a lot of Gnostic literature recently, right? After the formulation of the hypothesis. You had to,
because of the Cathars and all of the last week's show. You were,
Exactly. And it turns out that the hypothesis is Gnostic in nature, entirely. So if you believe that we have something there, we are both Gnostic disciples, which makes us heretics, and the church needs to burn us at the stake.
Not again.
But you know what? I didn't have much exposure to Gnosticism prior to this. So all my life I'd formulated all these theories, not understanding or realizing there's this whole body of knowledge. Well, diminished now that most of them are burned, but nonetheless some surviving of thoughts exactly like mine and Dave's to some extent, right? So it's a very interesting situation. So if we do have it right, and Gnostics have it right for that matter, in fact this is the basis for Christianity, I believe, then you really want to make a change, because you got stuck here. You're going to come back, mate. You're going to come back and again and again and again. Death is not the final release you might hope for. Reincarnation, which we discussed with you guys, seems to be a fairly compelling event. I mean, there are some things you simply cannot deny that have happened. Children having memories they could not have, yet there they are. And certainly people remembering past lives as well, and then being very accurate about going places, talking about people and circumstances. And the key thing is they're not all thinking they're Napoleon or Cleopatra. They're just regular folk, right? I mean, if someone tells me they're Napoleon, you probably got 50 in a room, you go, okay, fair enough, whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
If you just George Smith, carpenter from Surrey, that's not very glamorous, but you know all about that George Smith, and that is very difficult to explain away. So think about that for a second. No, I have no empirical evidence. Some studies have been conducted, very difficult to frame an experiment on, but certainly the investigations that were taken or undertaken, I should say, upturned a very interesting trend of evidence where the knowledge was just astonishing that these children and adults at certain times had. about physical things as well, where they had hidden something and then they brought it to, oh, here it is, and they go, oh wow, we had no idea this was, like, the family members would say, we had no idea this was there. Don't forget that the Dalai Lama is chosen that way as well. He's just being reincarnated into another body, and he himself points out to where that person will be. So you can take that any which way you want, but the point is, right, you really want to make this a good place because you're going to be here for a while. Okay, you want to be nice, you want to treat people the right way. And if you look at all of the teachings, I don't care which religion you are, I really don't, or faith or philosophy, right? If you look at all of them, including existentialists, like Sartre and so forth, they all had the same message. Plato, Socrates. Act responsibly. Act as though you were an adult human being with moral responsibilities. Treat others the way you would like to be treated, right? This is really the key message. And then you can go further and talk about love. I know you're all cringing now, that's fine. But that's really where it's at, guys. This is the message. There's no other message.
Do you know, you're so right. I felt that's what I was supposed to be doing all the whole time. It's all about being nice to everyone else because not just because that's the way you want to be treated, but there's a knock-on effect. If you're nice to someone, they'll be nice to someone else, and so on and so forth. And if we all did it all the time and we were polite to each other, wouldn't that already be a better place? If you start to act anonymously in your environment, that will carry to other people. Every interaction you have with every other person is a learning experience for both of you. You get to see how far you can push whatever you're doing, and they get to see how far they can push whatever they're doing. You're training them. You're like pets. If you have a dog that's sitting next to you at the dinner table, and you decide to slyly feed them some of your food, they learn that that's appropriate. You've just trained them to do it. You can train the people around you to be nice by being nice. It's harder for someone to be awful to a nice person.
Yes. Don't make no mistake. It happens though, right?
It certainly happens. And people, what it does, it makes the bad people be in the headlights. You can see who they are. It's really evident. And did you know what? If you were able to see your life in a flash and where you'd been good and bad to others, would you want to see the bad times? How would it make you feel about yourself?
Yeah.
You're your own judge in the end.
Yep.
See, and I'm not religious. I'm not particularly religious. I believe in being nice to people. That's probably my failure.
No, that is your strength, my friend. That is your strength.
Good boy.
And religion, you have faith though, and this is people confuse the two. And I would just want to quickly say something about it. Religion is something you do on a regular basis, like a ritual. You go to the church. You don't know why you're going there. You're talking to the priest. You listen to the guy up there, but why am I listening? Well, because my parents did it. Blah. That's religion. Faith is a much more active thing. You have faith in something, in yourself, whatever, in the God, whatever your belief system might be, but it's faith. And you take it on faith. So you have a lot of power within you because you have a certain fundamental belief system that is yours. That is faith. Religion is something you do out of habit. Faith is something that comes from within, and that's what you have. So it's a strength. No. Don't say that's a failing, sir. That's our strength. Do you know that the Cathars and the Gnostic martyrs as well as the Knights Templar went to the stake where they were meant to be burned quietly, even smiling? And there were a lot of reports of the time, and again, take it any which way you want, you can look it up yourself, that had them laughing while they were burning, that had them very quiet, not fighting, in fact. I can only imagine how horrible it must be to burn to death, right? But they were somehow released from that because they had a higher insight. They had a higher wisdom which allowed them to see past the pain, to see past the flames, into something else. Okay, do yourself a favor and look up what happened to the Gnostics that were burned, to the Cathars, to the Manichaeans, to the Polycians, to the Bogomils, okay, to the Cathars, and then to the Knights Templar as well. Okay, how they took it and how the burning was described by onlookers. Now, these were the enemies. The enemies would probably be, very happy to say, they were writhing in pain, they were recanting. Nobody recanted.
Mm-hmm.
These were regular folk too, regular folk. Right? Not the priests or the leaders. In fact, they didn't really have priests, but not the leaders. No, these were regular folk, and they did not recant. They were given the opportunity, but they didn't. So go figure.
Gee, that says a whole bunch about the strength of those individuals. That's amazing.
Yeah, I agree.
That really is. Oh my! Do you know what, Meki? We've only got a few minutes left, and I was thinking about while we're doing the show, thinking about how can we sum up this? It's pretty much been, for everyone listening today, this was an unplanned show. We had a guest lined up. Unfortunately, couldn't make it. But I'll tell you, next week, Meki.
Yes, sir.
We have the one, not Neo, the only Stanton Friedman, NASA physicist, on board. And in the last, say, half an hour, we might open up the phone lines. But we've got countless questions that we're going to ask, and I hope that we'll fulfill all your questions. Remember, jump in the chat room if you're listening to this during the week before. This is the 9th of February 2014. If you're in the listening to this on YouTube or in the chat room right now, I ask you, please come in. It's going to be a fantastic show. We'll postpone the Jason Martell show to being probably 2 weeks from now or so. Reschedule with him whenever it's convenient. And but next week's show is going to be absolutely amazing. I know I've got some hard-hitting questions that the fellow that Stanton is awesome. He's gracious enough to accept the invitation for a show. And you know what? I think it's coming at the right time.
Oh, yes, 100%. I mean, guys, if you haven't had the chance to listen to him, this is your chance to ask him questions. We will make every endeavor to open the lines and ask your questions in the chat. So come to the chat. You got a question? We are interactive. And again, to the chat, Ras, thank you very much. I learned something today. I will do some further research into the base 60. So you never stop learning, sir, even in the show.
It is all about, this is what it's all about. It's about our journey through all this information, and we hope that you're going to be with us throughout it. We certainly have a growing audience, Meki, and I thank all of them all the time for their patronage.
Yes.
All I'm going to ask is that if you're a fan of this on YouTube, please come to freedomslips.com and make a donation. This is listener-funded radio, and it's very important to keep the station going. It's only been around, I think it's been around for 3 years now, and the station's doing an amazing job. It's opening people, it's unlocking their minds. And just like Neo from the Matrix, it's unplugging them from the Matrix to a certain extent and allowing them to see maybe just through a hole in their box out to what's on the other side. And it's up to those people to, if they want to, explore further.
Yeah. You actually have a built-in escape hatch in your brain, in case you want to know. We might share that with you in a future show, but there's a physical escape hatch to escape from this prison reality. You just have to activate it. Okay, that sounds very mysterious and probably like, like BS to some people, right? But there is. It's one of the last things you learn when you are a Freemason too. Ha ha ha. It's but yeah, mystery schools, and you need to really look inside. Okay, it's Zen Koan. Where do you go when your enemies beset you from all sides? You go deeper into the cave, right? It's just an analogy, guys. It is the salvation lies within you. Salvation lies within.
Huh.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Bada bing. Big bada boom. That's a different movie. You know what? I just saw the movie. I just talking about movies. I saw this week RoboCop #2.
Any good?
I want to tell you that Samuel L. Jackson plays a shock jock style current affair program lead host or only host, and what he says, I don't know how he nailed those lines so well. I mean, he's an awesome actor, to be honest, but he nails the lines, and it's so tongue in cheek, and it's so let's go with this police state mentality that I nearly fell backwards over my chair hearing it come from him. The choice of using him for the role was undeniably fantastic. Yeah, and I was the only person in the cinema squirming in my seat when they used the terms like patriot. It's unpatriotic to go against drones. You know, and they showed there's some great examples in the film of just where we are in society right now, where certainly America is making those decisions right now. The movie couldn't have come out at a better time. So
I've got to see it.
The propaganda inside the film to lean everyone in favor of robotizing the police force it's something. It's something else, and you know, I want you all to see it. That's your homework for the week. Meki.
That be the music, sir.
It certainly is. Thank you to everyone who's listening, and we'll see you next week for a lovely, tremendous interview, hopefully for 2 hours with Stan and Friedman.
That'd be awesome.
On Shiny Side Out.